Hi there. Today is all about the Leica M11. I've had this camera for about 2 months. I'm going to chat briefly about the pros, the cons, some things that I love about this camera shooting for weddings, and everything in between. Let's go. A few fast facts so you understand my perspective chatting about the Leica M11 today. I am primarily a wedding photographer. I started using the M series 6 years ago. My first camera in that M series was the M240. It's really beat up because, like I just said, I shoot weddings. The M240, though, if you remember, is the first M series that had a live view on it, and this was the first M series that had video. So right out of the gate, I had a lot of great tools. It gave me a great intro into the M series. Obviously, I used it for 6 years. My approach to shooting is a deep focus on composition and creating emotive and artistic images. Hence why the Leica M system is great for me. The Leica brand is expensive. Leica users are drawn to the prestige, the heritage, the reputation of the brand. Shooting on an M series, it's a very tactile and physical experience, and a rangefinder is part of that game. In another video that I did a full unboxing of the Leica M11. Just first impressions. I will say though, everything I kind of am familiar with and love about the M system already. Pretty nice and thin there, quite minimal. There's nothing really bulky about this camera, which I love. Shutter is exactly the same, shutter options. Has a little ISO function. This pops off if you want to change the ISO. I just leave it at manual. Biggest notice, physical change of this is obviously the base plate. It is gone. You have, just much like the Q2, pops out. You have your battery, SD card right in there. This camera is not too heavy, not too light. It really is just ideal size. Very impressed overall visually with what this camera looks like. Just a few things with this menu here. This is all a touch screen, so it makes it really easy to access, especially if you're shooting a wedding day. I can change a drive mode. I also can change the metering. This is the first M that does actually multi-field. Yep, and then getting in here, just, some of those same things again. Digital zoom is an option on this M. I do not use that. We have some storage options here. You can customize a bunch of controls here, connecting to the Leica Photos app, which does work really well. Storage management, if you need to take that internal memory, put it to an SD card, that is exactly what that is for, and then you can format your storage right in there. That is the menu, kind of in a nutshell. Let's do this. Here are some pros about the Leica M11. As I mentioned, the sleek design, retro, everything we love about the M series. The new paint seal on this camera is fantastic. If you will look, I've had this 2 months, and there is not a single paint chip, no scratching. Stark difference from the Q2, which using it for 5 months, I had paint chips all over it. So this camera is proving very well with the new paint coating on the camera. Without the base plate, it is really easy for me to switch out the battery and replace the SD card if I need to at any time. This camera has triple resolution technology. I did say that right. It can do images up to 60 megapixels. I was happy on the M240 with 24 megapixels, so 60 megapixels is like some kind of wildest dream come true. Shutter is incredibly fast. It stores very quickly, and I'm able to shoot many images almost at rapid speed whenever I want at any given part of a wedding day. And this camera can keep up. ISO range on this camera is wild, 64 all the way up to 50,000 ISO. This camera only has one SD card, but it does have a internal backup of 64 gigabytes. I did use this in an elopement, got just a prompt on the screen that says your SD card is full, we're going to start writing it to the internal memory. It was great, super easy, and then when I had time I could switch out my SD card, and later I was able to back up the files from the internal memory back to my home computer. One of my favorite things about this camera is the ability to change the resolution of your images, your JPEG and your RAW files. You can make them 18, 36, or 60 megapixels. It comes into play if I'm at a wedding day, maybe like cocktail hour, I would want less megapixels on my raw files. So maybe I would bump it down to 36 megapixels, which would be a very fine image still, but it just wouldn't be as much wear and tear on my SD card. This camera is Bluetooth enabled. I've used it several times with the Leica Photos app. I have my profile for the Q2 and my M11 on here. I have just some gallery images. And you knew it was coming. There are some cons about this camera. This camera is very expensive. This is a rangefinder camera. If you're looking for an automatic camera, you will be disappointed. There's no double exposure option on this camera. It's not a huge con, but it would just be kind of cool to have. Like, is it really that much harder to add in? Probably is. It's probably really hard, but I wish that it could be added. You have to use the highest caliber of SD cards just because the processor is so fast. You can't get away with using an older card for this camera. This camera sadly has no video option. This camera does not come with a thumb grip, which is crazy because if you're using this camera in any capacity, you're gonna wanna have the option to have that thumb support. The battery life on this camera is lacking. I've tested it many times. I get on average about 3.5 hours of usage, less if it's a really hot day. I am just overall pretty disappointed. I feel like it could do a little bit better. Some of my Canon batteries are over 5 years old and I still get 5 to 6 hours of use on them on a wedding day. And this one, brand new out of the factory, and I only get 3 to 3.5-ish range of battery usage. So what makes this camera great for a wedding day? The detail shots in the morning with maybe the lay flats, some invitations, rings, ring boxes, all kinds of different trinkets. This camera has always been great to capture those moments. You know, using the Summilux 1.4, I'm able to get really like sharp, fine, pretty dreamy look to those images. This camera just elevates that all together. Because of the speed of this sensor, I am able to shoot almost any part of a wedding day using this camera, which is a huge change for me. I can shoot a first look moment, I can shoot a ceremony moment. As long as I'm focused in, it's gonna be able to capture the moment, and that's so cool to have. The one exception to that is the recessional when the couple walks back up the aisle. Almost always I'm using a DSLR just because I don't know how fast the couple's going to walk and I want to make the most of that moment. So that's kind of a bummer that I still have to use the DSLR and rely on that. It's just sort of how it goes. So this camera obviously is all about portraits, sunset pictures with the couple. I use this photo probably about 70% of those photos. Obviously having 60 megapixels is a dream. I'm able to capture so much detail in any setting that I'm in. Ugh, it's the best. Still learning low light on this camera and learning to be more comfortable with low light on this camera, and I just can't speak to using it too much on the dance floor yet. When people see this camera, they're intrigued by it. They usually think it's like a film camera. It's not, I tell them, but the bottom line is they want to be part of it. Same with my couples when I'm shooting their portraits. I do find for the most part it's something people are curious about, they're intrigued by, and I think that just helps with the artistry and storytelling. To wrap this up, I'm obviously a huge fan of the Leica M11. Even though I had a huge leap coming from the M240 to the M11, I am so impressed with this camera. I am so appreciative of the very modern and thoughtful new design improvements. You know, things like having a battery SD card I can access very quickly, having a touch screen, having storage options, having the option to have a 60 megapixel image is just awesome. The M11 maintains the retro and modern look that I love about the M system while elevating my ability to create art for my couples. And that's kind of the crux of it. I am so glad that you took time to watch this video. I appreciate any likes or subscriptions. If you want to ask any questions, please do that in the comment box. I'm sure you know the drill. I love Instagram. I'm there a lot. Love to keep chatting about Leica things, travel things, all of that. And I will also do a blog post link where you can see more sample images, including some before and after of what I've done with the M11 so far in shooting weddings. thanks again. And I think that's all I have. Like, for real, I think we're good. We're good here. Okay, cool.